These days you can't help but hear the word tariff basically every time you go online, or for you older viewers, turn on the TV. It's a constant barrage of countries and numbers and promises and warnings. One person will be praising how awesome these tariffs are, while another is telling you how terrible they are. So today, I will give a breakdown on when tariffs started, why they are used, and what they actually do, the good and the bad. So hopefully the next time you hear someone talking about tariffs, you won't ask yourself, why is that? Let's start with the basics. What even is a tariff? Simply put, a tariff is a tax that governments put on imported goods. If someone from another country wants to sell their product here, they're gonna have to pay a tax to bring it in. This cost is then passed down to the consumer by being added to the price of the item, although it doesn't have to be. Tariffs have been around for thousands of years. Back in ancient Rome and Greece, traders had to pay a tax on the goods they wanted to bring across borders and sell. They would charge higher rates on luxury items like jewelry, perfume, and home decorations, and charge lower rates on important things like food and basic clothing. This continued all the way through to medieval Europe. Anyone who owned land could charge a tariff for traders to cross that land or to sell goods on it. This meant not only kings, but any wealthy person could potentially charge tariffs. I know it seems like we're hearing about tariffs a ton. It must be something the United States really didn't do much of until now. Well, the truth is, the United States has loved tariffs for its entire existence. In fact, one of the very first things the United States Congress did was sign the Tariff Act all the way back in 1789. This imposed a 5% tariff on almost all imported goods, with some exceptions with higher and some with lower rates. This act also created the United States Customs Service, which is still going, just in a slightly different way as it's now part of the Department of Homeland Security. But the real fun started once countries decided to use tariffs as a weapon, a way to punish other countries. If a country was doing something your government didn't like, they would slap a bunch of tariffs on whatever goods they exported the most and try to hurt them financially. And while it would do this, it would also hurt the citizens of their own country, because just like how traders would add the tariff cost onto the goods they sold in ancient Rome, companies will add the cost of tariffs onto the products they are exporting. They're not going to lose profit after all. Sure, maybe that means less people can afford their stuff now, but that's better than selling it for less. Capitalism is all about maximizing profit above all else. In fact, this is one of the biggest reasons the Great Depression got so bad. Back in 1930, the United States passed the Smoot-Hawley Tariff Act signed into law by President Hoover. Economists warned against it, but politicians always think they know best. The United States was struggling financially. The stock market crash the year before was hurting the entire country. People were broke. So what did the government do? They placed massive tariffs on nearly everything in nearly every country, over 20,000 different goods. The government was hoping to make a bunch of money and push American products, and were making a bet that these countries would not retaliate, and that if they did, the money American companies would make would offset the costs. Well, that was wrong. The rest of the world placed tariffs on US goods as payback, so now not only were the products Americans buying much more expensive, other countries just started focusing trade with each other instead of with the USA. This hit basically every industry in the country, and the Great Depression went from being really bad to really, really bad. But hurting other countries isn't the only reason tariffs are used. Sometimes they are done to honestly try and help their own country. By placing tariffs on specific foreign goods, you can help local companies be more competitive financially. After the Civil War, tariffs were placed on imported steel. This was done to help US manufacturing grow, and it worked well because at that time, steel was extremely important for the growing railroad system in America. Of course, doing this does make the cost of these goods more expensive for regular citizens. It's a balancing act. Most people are happy to pay a little more to support local business, but if the prices get too high, they will not be very supportive. If a pair of shoes made in China is $20 and a pair of shoes made in the USA is $30, a lot of people will gladly buy the Made in America shoes. But if the Made in China shoes are $20 and the Made in the USA shoes are $80, a lot less people are going to buy that local product. This is where the tariffs can kick in. They can place tariffs on Chinese shoes so that the cost is now $100 and people will end up buying the Made in America ones for $80. But not only are they going to be very upset about the large price increase, it's going to hurt them financially and potentially cause a lot of damage to the economy when people cannot afford to keep buying these shoes. And sometimes tariffs are just used to make money by the government. It's a form of taxation after all. Before income tax was a thing, tariffs were one of the biggest money makers in the United States. Of course, it was still American citizens paying those tariffs, but I digress. Here's an example of how a tariff affects everything. Let's say the United States places a 50% tariff on steel and aluminum, which at the time of writing, this is what President Trump has currently put in place. 20% of all steel in the United States is imported. That means 20% of all steel is going up by 50% in cost. This cost is being passed down onto the cost of items using this steel. That means everything from washing machines, to cars, to ovens, to roller coasters. It all goes up in price. Domestic steel producers have had to raise prices by 16% so far this year. On top of that, many countries retaliated against these tariffs with tariffs of their own. So now not only is our own steel much more expensive, we are exporting less, which is hurting the economy in both ways. So do tariffs really even work? Sometimes. They can give a growing industry time to grow and be competitive with foreign markets. Sometimes we just need a little while to catch up. Sometimes we just need a little while to get production up and running. This is usually the case for new technologies, or what is called infant industries. This was the case with steel after the Civil War. Tariffs helped that industry flourish by shielding it from cheaper European product. But other times, tariffs just make consumers pay more, businesses struggle, and international relations awkward. Economists mostly agree that tariffs can hurt more than help, especially if they're used too aggressively or as a political weapon. They can cause job losses in industries that rely on imports, reduce consumer choice, and create inflation. See my video about inflation for info on that. So the next time you hear about what new tariffs are being implemented, just think for a second. Is this actually protecting domestic manufacturing? Is this making the country better? Or is this just someone throwing a tantrum and flipping over the monopoly board?